Okay ji. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's begin our discussion about administering the questionnaire. Questionnaire is the data collection tool which is used in the research survey strategy. In the survey strategy, we collect the data through the questionnaire. It is the most relevant topic of yours since the students usually prefer the quantitative study that requires you to collect data from the questionnaire. We need to understand the questionnaire thoroughly so that we will be able to collect the data from our respondents. Next. Through the diagram of this, I will be discussing about the questionnaire. Diagram. Yes. Diagram. Okay. Let's start the learning of data collection method questionnaire through these. You see, questionnaire is the way to collect the data. Now, when we talk about the questionnaire, write it down. We talk about the principles of wording. Principles of wording we need to understand. Principles of Arif sahab? Principles of wording. Another is principles of measurement. Principles of measurement. And the third is questionnaire administration. Questionnaire. So you see, questionnaire administration. Principles of wording, principles of measurement, and questionnaire administration. These are the three things which are primarily important to understand so that we will be able to develop the questionnaire that truly able to collect the data. Because if your tool is not appropriate, up to the mark, the exercise of collecting the data will be futile, will be useless. So you need to be very conscious about it, that your questionnaire must be up to the mark so that the exercise of collecting data from the respondent that may be 200, 300, 500, 1000 or 10,000, so it will be useless. So it's very, very important. Okay. Let's begin with the principles of wording. When we talk about the principles of wording, wordings are very, very important. Since wording is through wording, the respondent understand your point of view. So content and purpose of question must be very clear. Content and question. When we talk about the question, we talk about the items. We talk about the items. So in the questionnaire, we have items. We have items. So, purpose of question, that is the items must be having a purpose. It must not be useless. For example, you start with your questionnaire. You start your questionnaire with the introduction of yours, that why, who you are, why you are collecting the data. So it is very, very important. Plus, I recommend my students to first give the definition of the variable so that the respondent would learn about the variable a bit, what you are going to talk about, so that the respondent would be familiar about the concept you are going to ask. For example, motivation is one of your variable. So first you need to define motivation. You don't have to reveal your variable at all, but you define the definition of motivation. When you define the definition, then you move ahead and start asking questions about motivation. Likewise, other variable is performance. So first define performance in a line, not more than that, and then ask questions about performance. So that's how it goes. So content is very much important. Content has to be accurate, and content has to be wording and language is very important. Wording and language is very important. Wording must be easily understandable. It must not be a very for example, common people can understand the language. It must not be a scholar kind of language. Okay? Very high literary language. You do not have to use that. Why? Because the questionnaire is being filled by multiple respondents, and they won't be asking you questions. There will be little chance of feedback. So wrong attempt of items or the responses is possible. Language must not be appropriate and understandable, easily understandable. Vocabulary must be easily understandable, and language can be of any kind. For example, English, Urdu, Sindhi, Spanish, French, any language. Language has no problem with the questionnaire. We need to understand. We can make questionnaire in any language. Why? Because our purpose is to collect the data. Obviously, there are few procedures we have to go through. For example, the language expert must be there, so that there is no mistake in the translation. Because there's a chance that you have your original questionnaire is in English, and you are asking in Sindhi. You are asking the question in the Sindhi. So the proper linguistic must be there in between, so that there is no mistake in translating the language. Very, very important. Other than the type and form of questions. Type and form, what are the types of questions if we talk about, and what are the form of questions? There are multiple types we can talk about, multiple forms we talk about. For example, you cannot ask question to anyone. You make statements. For example, I feel like studying RMS. You cannot ask in the items in the questionnaire, do you feel like studying questionnaire with a question mark? You don't. You give statements to that. Okay? You give statements. You don't ask questions. So remember, you always give statements. So that is how you make. And the types could be for example, the type could not be ambiguous. The question should not be ambiguous. It should not be double barrel. It should be. It must be easily understandable. It must be asking a single point. For example, do you enjoy or do you love the RMS? So two things should not be asked in a single statement. There must be a different statement for different questions. There must not be any ambiguity in understanding the statement. If there is an ambiguity, so what will happen? You will get the wrong data. So this is very, very important. Sequencing is important, one after another. What question you have to ask first, then, for example, demographics variables, for example, age, salary, these are personal questions. Marital status. So you can ask at the last of the questionnaire. So, plus, if we talk about the sequence of our collecting the data, we can collect the data for independent variables first. At the last, we go for the dependent variable. Okay? So that is also appropriate. So sequencing is very, very important. In the beginning, you give introduction of yours. You tell who you are, why are you collecting the data, and then you ask little questions about the demographics if you want. Then you move ahead, and if you want to ask a question that is more technical, more related to the field, then you ask after that. First ask the general question, then specific. Classification of data or personal information is important. You classify the data, and personal information is difficult to get, and it is not always appropriate to ask every question openly. it depends upon the culture. So if you are in the culture which is not allowing you to ask a personal question which is useful for your data, so you ask indirect questions so that the respondent would not be offended. Okay? Or you won't get wrong answers. Very, very important. Because the respondent would answer you in any way. And it will be useless for you. Remember, whenever you get the data which is useless, then you have to get rid of it. You have to throw it away. So all the efforts you have done in collecting the data will be wasted. So very important that you focus that whatever you ask is well planned, well mannered, and whatever I'm telling you, principles of wording are important. Next is questionnaire administration. Administration is very important. Is it self-administered? The one who is filling the questionnaire is self-administering, or personally you are administering. If you are administering, you can help out the respondent. It is not recommended. Actually, it makes the respondent biased because you are directing the way. So the best is self-administered, in which the respondent understand himself and fill the questionnaire. Testing goodness of data is very, very important. What is goodness of data? Any idea goodness? What does goodness mean? Authentication. Accurate. Goodness of data is the usefulness of the data. When we say the data is good, the data is good, it means it is useful. You might have seen on the package of a product goodness of milk, goodness of porridge, etc. So what does it mean? It means what benefit does it have for you? So is there a goodness? So you need to test it. How do you test it? Through reliability testing. You check the reliability of the data, that whatever data you are collecting is reliable or not. The questionnaire, the tool is reliable or not. For example, this is a thermometer and I test my temperature through it. If it is not reliable, so wouldn't it be a waste of time to use it? Or if it is not working, so it won't give me the temperature of my body. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
So what does it mean? It means the tool must be appropriate. So goodness, testing of goodness is very important. If we have, for that we do a pilot testing. Write it down. We do a pilot testing, that is collecting the data of 50 respondents. Collecting the data of 50 respondents. Collecting the data of 50 respondents and test its reliability. Test its reliability. That is through the cron by alpha. Cron by alpha is the statistical way to check the correlation between the items.
But can you repeat collecting the data of 15 respondents?
Yes. Okay, I am repeating. Testing goodness of data is basically we do with the pilot testing. Pilot testing is when we collect the data of 50 respondents and we run the reliability analysis through SPSS software and we check the correlation between the items. We check the correlation between the items, among the items. Are they correlated or not? Correlation is primarily important. For example, motivation has 4 items. So every item has to be correlated with each other. So the respondent has to perceive them in a similar manner. So what statistics tell you, it does not understand English. It is not humanly intelligent. Machine is not humanly intelligent. So what we do, we give the data in numbers and it processes and tells you the respondent take every item differently, one or the other reason. It will not tell you the reason. It will tell you the respondent perceive the question differently. That's how you get to know about the goodness of data. So that is called through the reliability analysis. And after that, when you collect the complete data, so then you also check the reliability and the validity as well. Validity as well. So that is a different topic which we will be covering in the upcoming chapters. But I am just write it down. We usually check the validity of the data as well. When we talk about the validity, it means the items representing the same variable. That is called the validity. Are the items representing the variable? They belong or not? That is called the validity. Valid or not? Items are valid or not? Reliable means are they correlated or not? And when we say they are valid, it means they are truly representing their variable or not. Okay? So basically we check the both. In the beginning we just check the reliability. When we collect the complete data, we also check the validity of the items. Got it? Up till now, is it clear to everyone? Up till now, is it clear to everyone? Okay, move ahead. Okay, okay. Now we talk about the principles of measurement. The second is the principles of measurement. So principles of measurement is the how do we measure it? You remember we talked about in the hypothetical deductive method, we talk about the measures, developing measures. Do you remember that? Hypothetical deductive method, we learned the determining the measures. So you see how you measure it. First we need to categorize them, then we code them, then we scales and scaling reliability and validity. So categorization is simply the items of a variable. We need to categorize them with that how many items are representing what variable. So that is the categorization. And when we talk about the coding is making the choices strongly disagree. Note it down. Strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. So how do we code it? We code it that way. You might be thinking that through survey questionnaire, how we get the numbers? How we get the numbers? So through this idea, we get the numbers. We code it. The respondent answer in over here, or here, or here, or there. Okay, they respond that way. So if the respondent have given the response over here, it means 1. It means 1. If respondent has given answer in A, what does it mean? 4. 2, 4. A, agree. Okay? So that's how it goes. And when we talk about scales and scaling, so this is the concept which we will be studying in the upcoming chapters. But I am just introducing you with the scales concept that you have to scale every variable. Every variable has to be scaled. There are different kind of scales. Write it down. Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Okay, these are different scales. This is not the scope of our discussion that I will be telling you about each and every one, but these are the scales. Remember them. Ordinal, order से. Ordinal, interval, ratio. Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. So basically these are the scales through which we note down these coding. For example, if you talk about the motivation variable, so motivation variable can be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. And all the items would be in that. Okay. Now we talk about the scaling. In that, what we scaling could be of any kind. For example, strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. This is one of the kind of scaling. It can be always or never, sometimes, often, sometimes. Okay, this is one of the skill I just made up for you. So this is one of the skill. So there are different kind of skill you use. There are different category of that as well. So that's how it goes. Coding is when you code the skills. Scalings, yeah, in digit, yes. Code means you are changing the data from text to numbers. That is called coding. Okay, so these are the skills. There are different kind of skills. Okay? There are different kind of categories of skill even. We will be studying in the upcoming chapters. Okay, reliability and validity we already discussed in the goodness of the data. So reliability and validity is there. Principle of measurement, since we talk about the data over here, the coding is already done. You have all the data, so you go with the reliability and validity. Okay, reliability and validity is very important. Without reliability and validity, you can never say my analysis is trustable. My analysis is trustable and I have gone through the scientific method. You can never say. Until you validate it statistically, you take out the reliability statistically. Okay? It assures that your instrument was a true instrument. It assures that you have collected the data correctly. Without that, you can never make any interpretation, any result. Okay? Last one, please write it down. A data collection method, we noted down 3. The fourth one is general getup. That was missed. It is general getup. It is general getup. Okay. General getup means appearance of questionnaire. Appearance of questionnaire is very important. How does it appear? Is it appearing a literary work, or it is a casual one, or how does you represent yourself? Very, very important. And with the help of the introduction, you make the respondent appear your questionnaire well. So the questionnaire has to be tested. Remember, there is a face, and write it down, there is a face and content validity. Before launching the instrument, you ensure the face and content validity. Face and content validity. What is face? Face validity tells you about the language of the questionnaire, which we already discussed. And when we talk about the content, you go to 2 experts to ask them to vet your questionnaire. Before launching the questionnaire, we ensure the face and content validity. Face validity is the one which tells you about the language of the questionnaire. Is it understood? It is easily understandable or not? And it must be minimum, it must be vet from 2 language experts. Face validity must be done with the 2 language experts. And when we talk about the content validity is the validity by the experts. For example, you are doing the HR research on the HR topic, so you need to present your questionnaire to the HR experts so that they can check and vet with the definitions and the items of variables. You present your questionnaire to the experts and they check it and they sign it and they say good to go. Then only you can launch your questionnaire. Very, very important. Length of questionnaire must not be very long. If it is too long, then it gets boring and it creates lackluster to the respondents and not well taken by the respondents. So you might get the answers of without reading the questions items. The response without reading the questions items at all. So this is highly recommended that you keep the length of every question small. This is a technical thing, that how could you concise your items. This is a tricky part, and that's where your supervisor helps or the other colleagues help you, or if you are experienced in that, you can easily do yourself. Instruction for completion. Every instruction must be there, that you will be given choices, and the choices will be strongly agree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And what does that mean? You have to tell that as well. What does that mean? Everything has to be crystal clear. If you make the respondent confused, he will never give you a correct data. And when the data is incorrect, the whole research will be useless, waste of time. Resources will be wasted. So it's very, very important that you keep this thing in your mind. Any questions so far? About this same topic, I have made another video that is very, very useful. I have not covered the topic the way I covered in my thesis class. So I recommend you to watch that video as well. Very, very enlightening video about questionnaire. How to develop a questionnaire with the sample I taught, with a sample of a questionnaire. And I also taught about the ambiguity, what are the examples of ambiguity, what are the examples of double barrel questions, what are the examples of loaded questions, that is the emotionally triggered questions. So it has a lot of knowledge. So if you are interested in going into the deep or practically learn how to make a questionnaire, then must watch that video. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, thank you.